2013 showed that France had the highest amount of terrorist attacks at 63 individual terrorist attacks in 2013. So they've known about this for a long time, they've been seeing it happen. Yet they refuse to acknowledge they've got a problem. And the French president actually said last week, we're going to accept another 30,000 Syrian refugees. How smart is that bloke? Absolutely stupid. Here's another horrifying statistic. And this is a survey of Muslims in Europe and their positive attitude towards ISIS. So, Muslim males aged 18 to 24, which are probably the ones that we should be most concerned about, 27% of them in France have a positive attitude towards ISIS. They support ISIS. That's 27% of people living in France that are Muslim. When it gets down to older ages, down to 22 and 20%. In Germany, that's only 3 to 5%. But in France, thanks to the Algerian Muslims and their radical behaviour, they hate us. They hate the West, and for everything we support. Here's something even more scary. Muslim support for suicide bombers. Now, when I grew up, I always wanted to grow up to be a suicide bomber. Didn't you? I just think that's the total antithesis of what we expect and what we want to live as a free human being in this beautiful country of ours and in the world. Why do you want to grow up to be a suicide bomber? It just defies belief. Yet it's happening. And in France, and this is over all age groups, 35% of Muslims in France support suicide bombing. They get 72 virgins actually, but I've seen some photos of some of them women. I wouldn't want to be dying for some of them. That's why they wear that burqa on their head. So, Muslim support for suicide bombing is the highest out of all Europe in France. But Spain, you got 25%. Great Britain, you got 24%. Germany is 13%. United States is 13% as well. Hello? Earth to France, Earth to Germany, Earth to the US. A lot of these Muslims support suicide bombing. They don't support our free democratic society. So just have a look, just take this back to Australia now. Say, we've got what, 500, 600,000 Muslims living in Australia? The 2011 census said that we had 476,000 Muslims living in Australia. Now, I don't know how correct that is because according to some Muslims, it's against their religion to partake in the census. So we don't really know what the real story is with Muslims and how many they are. So, but let's say there's 600,000 of them because Ruddy and Gillard let in 50,000 alone on the boats from after the 2011, around from 2011 to 2013. So we could say safely 600,000 Muslims. So if we convert that 13% that support suicide bombing, that would convert to 70,000 Muslims living in Australia that would also support suicide bombing. Quite a frightening figure. And when you think, and I looked it up on Wikipedia last night, our Australian Army, as of yesterday, has 28,568 regular servicemen and women serving right now for the Army. 14,662 in reserves, in Army reserves, making a total of 43,230 Australians serving in our Army. And right now, there's close to 70,000 Muslims living in Australia that support suicide bombing. That's quite a frightening statistic right there, guys and girls and children. Concerned people everywhere. What are we going to do about it? What would happen if suddenly 20,000 of those psycho bastards started attacking us everywhere? What would we do? We could call on the army, we can call on the police, but they're not going to help us too much if we're outnumbered.
We'd act
This is why we have to stop Islamic immigration now, and we have to curtail it. We have to stop building mosques.
That's what you're doing, acting non-violent.
That's a big one. I didn't hear that, mate. But anyway, get rid of it. Yes, well, I tell you what, when I post things on our Reclaim Australia Rally Cairns site, halal certification gets the biggest response. And who was it? Domino's Pizza the other day got rid of halal certification. So, congratulations to Domino's. Okay, now, back to the demographics and the problems that we face. Just say you've got a bowl of M&Ms in your hand, and in those M&Ms, you've got 150 M&Ms. What if you were told that you can eat an M&M, no problems at all, but 10 to 20 of them might kill you? Would you still put your finger into that bowl and take out an M&M? No. So, the same thing applies to our population and to our country. We can be nice to Muslims as much as we want, as the great unwashed over there want us to be. But it only takes one to shoot us, just like man Monis.
Watch out, you're not inciting hate. Be careful.
Okay, it only takes one rotten egg, but there's more than one rotten egg.
Cowards!
Out of every 150 M&Ms, there's 10 or 20 M&Ms that are going to kill you. So, say no to M&Ms, say no to Muslims. All right, so back to France quickly. I suppose I better wrap up. I've got some other things to do. France is one of the world's top exporters of weapons and arms around the world. They're in the top 5. $25 billion in the last decade France have made from selling arms. And guess where they've sold them to? Number 1 destination for France weapons was the United Arab Emirates. 4th was Saudi Arabia and 5th was Morocco, all Muslim countries. They're pretty smart, these French buggers.
US allies!
They sell weapons to countries that will then turn around and use their weapons to shoot up their own civilians.
US allies.
And the United States is just as bad. So is Germany, so is Britain. We've got to wake up in the West and stop selling weapons to our enemies.
Yes!
It's pretty simple. Okay? Very simple.
Yes, he's right.
Let's stop doing that. Let's start looking after our own citizens instead of selling guns to the Arabs.
Yes!
No use having gun control here. If we can fancy selling weapons to a country but then letting your own civilians not have any gun control. How hypocritical is that of our politicians? It certainly does. So, do we want a free and open society? Or do we want a totalitarian society?
No!
Do we want a welfare state?
No!
No. And 90% of the Muslims that come here are on welfare. And after 5 years, it's still around 90%. They don't want to work. They think this is the best job in the world, coming to Australia and scumming off of our welfare. Meanwhile, the pensioners can't get a decent rise in their pension. Our returned veterans are not being looked after as well as what they could be. Our homeless, we've got homeless on the streets. Our governments need to wake up. And we don't need to be involved in every conflict around the world. Let's look after our own first. All right, so yep, our society needs to pull its finger out, no doubt about it. We've got crumbling infrastructure. We need our Trinity Inlet dredge crying out loud.
You come here to
And the
insult
government won't
everyday
even do
Australians
that.
when
They
there's
won't
genocide
call
going on
our
right at our
port
back
the
door and you don't
Trinity
house it.
We need to get the cruise ships in here. We need the nation ships in here. And the government says it will destroy the reef when our port's been dredged for the last 100 years and it hasn't done nothing to the Great Barrier Reef. So I'll tell you what, we have some problems in our society and we need to fix them. We need the right to discriminate. Because if we don't have the right to discriminate, we have no rights at all. And we should be able to discriminate to protect our borders, to protect our language, and to protect our culture. So, have an honest conversation with your family, with your friends, with your work colleagues. And I try all the time. And it is amazing how many people out there are dumb. That just will not wake up to the realisation that we have a real problem in this country and in the world. And it's only going to get worse if we don't start talking and if we start telling the truth about Islam. It's the only way things are going to get better. So, just finishing, yesterday there was a Today Show report on the Australian Army removing a 102-year-old motto from its hat badges because it offended Muslims. What the hell? Well, I tell you what, I bet you the Defence Minister is going to have some serious questions to answer tomorrow, Monday, back at work, I hope. Fancy changing a badge because it offends Muslims. We all get offended by them, too right. Too right. So I ask, is anyone out there angry about that? I can see. Is that right? Is that another one? The Scouts. The Scouts, and the Scouts have to remove God from their badge. So there we go. There's another one. It's just so this is a sign, or this is showing us that the Islamisation of Australia is well and truly alive and well and fostering in our socialist governments. Be they Liberal or Labor, it doesn't matter. They're all selling us out. That's why at the next federal election it could decide the future of Australia, to tell you the truth. We need some people in the Senate. It'd be great to get a few in the lower house, but get some up in the Senate where we can actually force some change. So, just going back to this badge from the Australian Army, it was in the words Latin, in hoc signo vinces, meaning in this sign you will conquer. So the Muslims were offended that it said, in this sign you will conquer. What the hell? But they've got eggs on their face, these Muslims, because that banner was first used by Constantine, a Roman emperor who lived in the year 300 AD. Islam was founded in the year 600 AD. So that slogan was used 300 years before Islam was even around. So they've got no right to be offended by that badge. They've got no right to be offended by that. That's been around 300 years longer than what they have.
And we still sing the national anthem.
Oh, I forgot. Yes, we will be singing the Australian national anthem. I was so excited to get into my speech. Thank you, guys. And just quickly, so Islam is offended by a silly thing like a hat badge, but they're not offended by the Queen's head on our money. All of them bloody hypocrites. All right. Well, I tell you what, I think that'll do me. I've spoken for long enough. I'll get back up and I want to read out a poem by George Mansfield later. But I do apologise. We didn't sing the Australian national anthem, so here goes. Everyone, 1, 2, 3. Holy. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. 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 Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. You bloody beauty, patriots. I tell you what, it looks great up here, looking around at the sea of people, all the Aussie flags. You're all beautiful patriots. Now, after getting so emotional about singing that national anthem, I would actually like to spend a minute now, and if we can bow our heads in a minute's silence for not only the victims of Paris, but also Mali. Mali, there was 27 shot dead only 2 days ago. They walked into the Radisson Hotel in Mali, and the terrorists walked up to these poor people and said to them and gave them a simple question, "Are you Muslim?" If the people in the hotel said yes, they're Muslim, they said, "Good, can you prove it?" Quote a verse from the Quran. If those people were not able to prove that by saying a quote out of the Quran, they were shot in the head. So let's take a minute's silence for Paris, for Mali, and for all the hundreds of thousands of people that have died over the years thanks to Islam. 1 minute. Okay, thank you. Look at that. It was total silence. Fantastic. Viva la France and Viva Australia. Okay, I'm going to get out of your hair now, and I'll be back though, just like Arnie. I'll be back. I'd like to call up Mark Swain. Swainy?